up, everybody? My name is Nick Hall, and welcome to Conversations. Man, this is a show where we cover faith and culture, and we go deep so that, man, we want you to hit up the comments, let us know things you want us to talk about, share, spread the news. But, man, this is Black History Month, and I got some friends in the house with me today. Can we make some noise in the house? Yeah. We're gonna have a good time together. It's gonna be awesome. And up front over here, I got my man Miracle. Miracle is a young man on a mission. He can sing a little bit. Miracle, you got something for us? Come on, what do you got? What do you got? Yeah. Let's see what you got.
Come on, brother.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. I think we can all say we've heard enough, but we appreciate you coming. This is gonna be fun. Next to Miracle, we got Lena. Lena has an incredible story. Lena, I heard you're an amazing dancer. Is that true? Like, you have like a river dance jam you do?
I can do the jerk.
Okay. Come on, I was gonna ask Miracle to dance, but he broke the floor earlier, so we're not gonna do that. Up top, up here we got David. David's in the house. David's a part of our internship here at Pulse. David, tell us something that maybe people don't normally know. They're like, they put you in a box. They don't know you. Like, what would surprise people about you?
Let me think. My bad. I have a heart to evangelize as well, and I want to make Jesus known and unite the body of Christ all together in one.
Come on, man. Just a bleeding heart for unity of the body. So, man, we got an awesome crowd in the place. It's going to be fun. Up top over here, we got Rosie. Woo! Rosie lives in the Twin Cities. She's in college. Rosie, fun fact about you is?
I like to sing.
Like to sing? Woo! Okay. Anybody want to say prove it?
Prove it.
Come on. Oh.
Should we let her? We'll maybe come back in the episode. We're going to come back to Rosie. We're going to give her a chance to get ready. We want to feel it. Now, up here, we got Josh. Josh is here bringing the heat. Josh, man, you had the pink on last time we were together. Now, I don't know if there's like some shame and condemnation. I just want to repent as your brother. I just want to say, like, we welcome the pink, as you are yourself. But Josh, what about you, man? How can we get to know you a bit?
Dang, a fun fact about me, I kind of like to dance, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Prove it.
Okay. So stay tuned. We're going to have some singing and dancing. It's going to be wild. And last but certainly not least, we got Favor here. She is a woman of God, passionate for the Lord in college. And man, Favor, what do we need to know about you other than like follow you, like you, and single Christian man, like hit up the DMs?
Okay.
Yes, and yes. No, but I like to. A fun fact about me is I like to eat ice cream at night.
Oh, hello. Yeah. That's interesting. That's like getting real. Like somebody's like, did she actually share that? Like that's like vulnerability gives the freedom for vulnerability. Right? And so, listen, hit up the comments with some sort of a fun fact for you. It's gonna be a great episode. Hey guys, man, I'm so excited to be here with a couple friends. I got Miracle and Dominique, and we're about to have an important conversation. And this is about, obviously, something that we're all passionate about, something that is relevant to culture. Miracle, you come from East London, from the UK, but man, you've been speaking into things here at Pulse as an intern, man, helping the fashion game of everybody around, helping the style points. And now, man, having a conversation about race, justice, and man, just helping, man, drive things forward that are important as believers, and just because we care about each other, right?
Yes, sir. And
here we got Dominique. Dominique, you've interned here. You're a part of the Pulse 100 cohort of young preachers and ministers, and man, I just love your voice, and so I'm excited to be here for this time, right? It's February. February is Black History Month. The reason Black History Month is important is because this is about American history, and specifically about parts of American history that maybe a lot of us didn't grow up hearing, right? The heroes of the past, those men and women that have gone before us. And I love how you said earlier, this is about us looking back and about us looking forward. Now, a lot of people watching may not know this, but there's also other cultural history months. There's Latinx History Month. There's Native American History Month. There's even Asian Pacific Islander History Month. And I would encourage you, if you're watching this, man, to look up these other months. Why? Because it helps you be a student of the culture around us. Man, there's just so much. And I don't know about you guys, but my life is better for knowing about other people, right?
Yeah. The goal of these months is to celebrate and honor the cultures of those who are represented during each corresponding month.
So again, February, Black History Month. We want to shine a spotlight today on this episode of Conversations to drive in and help people understand more. So Black History Month, so dating back before the transatlantic slave trade through, there was something called the Jim Crow era where there was unjust laws driving forward segregation and really marginalizing people of color. And now even with today, and we're here in Minneapolis, the tragedies that are happening feels like every week, there's a relevant conversation. And unfortunately, rather than the love of Jesus, which you would think among Christians would be like the thing we're known for, it often can feel like there's ideologies or politics or beliefs that continue to drive a wedge and even make people feel more hurt and more unseen, more unloved. And I'll just say this, as a white leader, it's often felt like my friends who come from the Black church and our believers have felt like white believers don't believe them, or don't listen to them, don't see them. And I think a biblical basis for this conversation today is Jesus, when he gives us the most important commandment, right? He says the most important is this: love Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. So what does that mean for us as believers? To bear each other's burden, to love each other as we would love ourselves, especially when those brother or sister don't look like us, have a different experience than us. And so, man, I just want to say, man, where you guys have felt ignored or belittled by people that may look like me, it's wrong. And we're here to have a conversation, hopefully to drive some change forward.
So Nick, I just want to say thank you for actually acknowledging that. Right? Thank you so much for sharing that and letting us know that we're not alone in this. It's important for people to come alongside us as allies and to love us, right? Just as Christ has called us to love. Yeah. But now, the first commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. Can we see God? No, right? But we can see his image all around us. And you can see how complex our God is with all the differences in us. But one of the most visual differences is, of course, our color, you know?
Yeah.
And so, as we focus on what we see, God doesn't want us just focusing on what we see, if that makes sense. So we have to really look past and see with our spiritual eyes, right? And to love one another in the way that Christ has called us to love, in a way in which we can see them as a person first and foremost, and then see them as a brother and sister, right? I think that's what Paul meant when he said, neither Jew nor Gentile, neither free nor slave, because all of us are one in Christ, a human being first and foremost. And so I think, effectively loving one another comes in many different formats. I mean, drive safe is a way of saying I love you, right, and showing love. Or purchasing food for you, right, is a way of showing love. But now in this particular context, in Black History Month, we need to be able to understand one another and understand the history that we may have been going through and our people have gone through, and how that has influenced our future and our current situation as well, and try to bring reconciliation, all right? Because that is actually the ministry that Christ has called us to. In 2 Corinthians 5:18, it says that all this is from God, right? All things come from God, and who through Christ reconciled us to himself and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. It is our responsibility to help bring reconciliation to one another. But how we do that, we have to look to Christ as our model. What did he do? He spent time with those who were lowly. He spent time with those who were rejected and neglected by society, and actually went out of his way to seek them. So what we need from the white church, or honestly I want to say the church, because it's one body, one church, and we need that unity. What we need from the church is to step out and care for those who are being neglected, who are being rejected, who don't have the same things that we have, all right? And who are willing to give themselves away so God can use them.
So like when you get to know someone, you have to learn what their love language is. You have to learn how they receive love, how like what the best way is to show them love. And I feel like that's something that's often missed in the church, because like, and just in general, like I know my sister is a physical touch person for love language, and I am very much not. But I go out of my way in certain instances to hug her and to like spend more time like closer to her, because I know that she likes that. And I think that that needs to be followed in this type of conversation too, because outside of just listening to respond, we need to listen to understand and listen to just even be there, because sometimes all someone needs is to be listened to feel better, to let go of some of those things, and instead of responding in ways that may just shut that person down or put all of what they just said back on them, it is helpful to just learn and listen and try to understand, so we can better love people. So
Yeah, it makes me think of James. He gives this command to the church, and he says, take note of this, be slow to speak, be quick to listen, and be slow to become angry. And I think as it relates to this conversation on Black History Month, on issues of all of the racism in the past, right, in America, whether people want to say it or not, like we have a hard story when it comes to, you know, how our country has treated people of color, going back to First Nations people, going to the slave trade, going to Jim Crow laws. And I know that people want to just get over it or move on, but it's not that easy, right? And so what does it mean for me to be slow to speak, to be quick to listen, to be slow to become angry, right? I know that even this conversation is going to be triggering for some people, and they're going to get frustrated. And they're going to get frustrated. Oh, why does this conversation have to happen? And they're not being slow to angry. They're quick to be angry. They're quick to get on their social media feed and go on a rant. And I just think, man, like, how do we seek to understand the stories? Because even for me, as things have happened in Minneapolis, you know, these aren't stories for most people that are far away. Like, these are stories that are close. They trigger emotion, because that could be me, or that could be my son or daughter, or that could have been, you know, and even I had friends, even when George Floyd was killed, that they just were weeping, right? Because they had been cornered by police, or they had had to lay out on the ground. And this isn't just a story that happens to some people. Like, there's a lot of people that have these experiences. Not to come and bring my, you know, perspective to this story, or correct it, or judge it, or
question it.
Exactly. Because I just think that's then all people hear is judgment or questions, or, oh, well, what about this? Or, oh, were they that? And it's like, man, you just seem really harsh right now, when this is like pain, you know, and this is a long time of pain. If Jesus was familiar with sorrow, right? If he was familiar with suffering, like, are we willing to be there? A man of many sorrows, I think, is how it says in the Bible, right? It's how do we draw near?
I think one of the things we really need to highlight is, you know, like you said, this is hard and it's difficult, but it's the way the world is, right? And this world has been built up in a system of white supremacy, all right? And that white supremacy influences all major areas of people activity, right? Economics, right? I can have the same degree as a man who looks like you and get paid less, right? Influences education. I could be taught, you know, that Christopher Columbus is the one who founded America, and that's the way I was actually raised my whole life, up until I had some Native Americans educate me, right? Or even too, you know, there being, what was the name of the young woman who was the first African American in that school? Ruby Bridges, right? You know, I was never taught that kind of thing in school, and we need to make sure all people are taught that kind of thing in school. White supremacy influencing, you know, religion, sex, law. Why is it that, you know, police officers are called to be implementing justice when really all they're doing is following laws, and it's not justice at all? You know, like the system is almost controlling, you know, all parties, and not all parties are benefiting from the system. And so when you can understand that you're on the receiving end of something, and there are some people who are out there and they're actually being oppressed by that system, how can we then go ahead and help people who aren't on the better side of that, who are on the greener side of that grass, right? And so, again, it really just comes down to compassion. Right? It comes down to love. It comes down to empathy. It comes down to listening to what the other people are going through and caring, and loving on them.
It's so good, Miracle. I mean, I love, just hearing, your passion and story in it. I mean, it makes me think of, this pandemic has been such an example of people wanting their rights to not be taken away, right? And even right now in Ottawa, there's trucks stopping people from coming across the border, and all these people have gone and they're literally protesting vaccination, I think. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, they're crazy. And there's a lot of people like, no, they have the right for their voice to be heard. Like even my wife was like, they have a right for their voice to be heard. And I just think when there are laws or things in place that are hurting certain people or taking away rights, like it's in the best interests of society to have a conversation about those things, and at a minimum to lean in to say, help me understand, right? Like these things that have been hurtful or have been wrong or are slanted a different way. And I think you're right, the statistics kind of all point in the same direction, that, hey, there has been an unfair system for a long time. And so what is the responsibility for us as a society to seek to change that in a way that is more in line with God's heart? Because God doesn't look and say, okay, I love you kids more than you kids. No, he just welcomes us all, right? And so how do I have that heart, right? No matter what my background is, rather than judging or being critical and saying, oh man, but that's not how I heard it. It's like, man, help me understand. What, it's like how those First Nations people taught you, right? About American history. I think we all have something to learn. And I think that's really powerful.
And it's allyship. It's allyship. That's what we need. That's what we're asking for. That's the call to action, And allyship, coming alongside one another and being able to walk in the same direction with agreement, and knowing that we're all part of a body, right? We all have a role to play. You may not be able to do what I do, and I may not be able to do what you do, but we're able to work towards the same common goal in the community, right? With purpose. And so, what would you say?
I think that, for many of us, like you guys said, we don't learn about Black history in school. And so almost all of the stuff that I know, I learned by doing the research myself. So also taking the initiative to go and do research so you can learn, so we don't have to teach, be in the position where we are always having to teach and explain and open up about things that may be traumatic for us and stuff like that. Because many of us have access to a computer or a phone or a library, some sort of resource that we can use to learn more about a more realistic representation of what history actually looked like. And it sometimes can appear as people choosing to sit in ignorance when all of those resources are right there. But they're like, well, I just don't know what's true or what's reliable. That's why you go and look. That's why you do the research. That's why you take the time to learn, because I didn't know what was reliable, but I sat and did the research. I sat and learned, and we all have the capability of doing those things.
Yeah, it is. Somebody told me recently, they said it's kind of like we all know the Bible's good, but you have to seek it out for yourself, right? And it's like, God gives us this choice, but we either seek it or we don't. And I think the same thing is true in terms of how, loving my neighbor, right? Either I'm seeking out ways to love them or I'm not. And in this conversation of Black history or just diversity or understanding those that are not like me, they're there, right? People who are not like me are out there. I don't have to go far to find, people that are very different from me, a white guy from North Dakota, right? Either I fill my life with people just like me and don't even learn outside that bubble, or I learn from voices who reinforce my bias, or I seek to understand. I put myself in a lesser position where I'm learning, I'm reading articles from other people, or I'm trying to understand, even people I don't agree with. But it's am I ever willing to reach beyond? Are there any friends that represent this group, right? If you don't have any black friends. Like man, that should be a prayer. Like, God, give me genuine friendship. Like, not just like a token thing of like, hey, what's it like to be black? You know, but like just people who are like actually care about you, just like any other friend. Like, pray for that. And maybe in the interim of that, like, study, like, try to understand, read some books from people that are different, that give you a different perspective, right? We introduced Justin Giboney and his resources, and the things the AND campaign are doing are great. But there's a lot of great preachers and authors, like people that we can learn from. And I just think, man, that's like, how do I be a student of the things that I know are on God's heart? And if God's heart is for every tribe, tongue, and nation, then, man, may I not just be pursuing like my own little tribe here, right? But that I am having this like whole heart for the kingdom. And I'll just say, guys, like, I am so blessed just to call you friends and to have you like helping me understand. And I have a lot to learn. And that's not like scary. Like, that's exciting. Like, when you're learning and when you're challenged, like, that is healthy, because that means you're growing. Right? Like, I know there's a lot of things that are wrong in the way I think or the way I maybe understood things growing up. And it's like, man, the only way I can grow is by being willing to say, man, I didn't even know that was offensive that I said that. I didn't even know what that meant. Like, even in doing this, I had to look up Jim Crow. Like, I knew the name, but I didn't know it was this fictional character that was used to negatively represent black people. And then that word was used to, you know, be a part of these laws that, you know, put people in places that were just horrible for decades. Not even that long ago, up until 1950s. Like, this was like, my parents were born around then. Like, so this isn't like distant history. This is like recent history. And it is still manifesting on our streets today. And so for the people that say, I wasn't alive back then, well, it's like, your parents were. And if they weren't, their grandparents were. And you don't have to travel that far to see there's still problems. It'd be one thing if we had the solutions down, then it's like, well, yeah, then we're good. Let's move on to another problem.
But that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
I think to say as a heart, like, we want this to change in our generation. That there doesn't have to be another generation of our kids that still feel and see and think this way, but that there could be the conversations that need to happen, the heart change that needs to happen. Like, a church that takes seriously the call of Jesus and says, like, yeah, we're going to see everybody as valuable as an image bearer of God, period. And, you know, I think that's a good place to build from.
Tell them.
I mean, it's so evident, especially with the rise of like TikTok and social media and stuff, but we've seen how performative activism and allyship has become. And so I guess a question for you would be, what does it look like to be a genuine activist and ally in this time?
I want to be somebody that is always available and always asking questions and always seeking to understand, right? So for my friends that are in my life, when things are happening or when the world is changing, like, this isn't just for me with my black friends, this is any friend. It's like, am I somebody that actually cares, right? Am I somebody that's asking, hey, how are you? Is there anything that I can do to lift your arms right now? Like, just coming as like a friend. I have one of my buddies, and he's a black man in a very white world, and I just know he's always inundated with different things going on. And so I'm just always trying to like lift his arms. I'm always trying to understand. And then also, like, when things are happening, I try to stand with people, even in places I don't understand, right? So when all the stuff happened with George Floyd, I mean, I was at the police precinct an hour before it was set on fire. Like, why? Because my pastor friends in the Twin Cities had asked us, as leaders, whatever, but they said, especially we need some white friends to come. And they actually asked us to stand on the outside, because they said if we have white advocates on the outside, it's safer for us on the inside. Which I was like, wait a second, does that mean it's more dangerous for me on the outside? But it's like, you know, it's a small price to pay, right? Like, I'm just there. And I was even at some things, you know, when the verdict came in with some friends, and one of my friends, Corey Dean Cross, and I just was saying, you know, stuff was chanted all around us that I'm like, this isn't stuff I agree with, you know, like things that are said. And yet it's like, I don't have to understand everything or agree with everything to stand with you and to say, man, your pain is my pain, right? What does that mean actually to bear your burden? What does that mean to put myself in a position where it's like, what would it be like if this was my little brother? What would it be like? You know, I've never been afraid when I've been pulled over. Like, I don't have that experience. But all my black friends, they talk about that all the time, of getting the talk, of put your hands on the dash and don't look directly. Like, all my white friends, like, we knew how to, like, get our way out of any ticket. And if you were a girl, it was just you cried, you know, and that was like a thing, you know, and so that's just so different. And they'll even say, oh, this is such a white story, right? So I just think there is that, like, trying to be an ally. And then as it relates to being an activist, I think it is saying, man, how am I seeking to learn, right? How am I seeking to follow Jesus' example? Jesus is always standing up for the outcast and the oppressed and the marginalized. He just does. He is drawn to sinners and hurting people, period, right? So where you see hurt and pain and loss, like, the world wants to judge it, you know, dissect it, say, oh, that's wrong and why do they do that, whatever. Jesus is always there. He's always there. And so for me, he is the example of being an activist. Like, I should move with compassion and action to the places where the need is greatest. And even sometimes where the risk is greatest. Even when the world criticizes it, that's probably where Jesus would be. He was a friend of sinners, right? And so it's just like, how are we there? So anyway, I love this conversation. I really love you guys. And yeah, I'm just honored. I'm honored to be at the table with you both. So
I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. It was good to dig into, like, some of these hard questions that people often are either unaware that they need to even be asking or thinking about, or are too afraid to talk about. So
Yeah, and they don't want to talk about it because it's oftentimes uncomfortable. But in order for there to be growth, it must be uncomfortable.
yeah.
stretching.
Yeah, and I know a lot of ministry leaders, right? Even pastor friends, that people will leave their church if they talk about this too much. People will stop giving if they talk. People will say they're this or that if they talk about this. I mean, it's like, it's hard. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not important, right? And we're saying it's important. And so, man, in the comments, let us know if there's things that have spoke to you or challenged you. Even if you have a question, say, man, maybe if you even say, this was hard for me to hear, I don't understand. Be honest. That's okay. You don't have to understand it all. Also, just want to encourage you to join us this summer for Together 22. It's called Together because we want everybody there.
Yep.
Right? One of our things is, it's just like, man, we want the whole bride of Christ to be represented. This isn't just a black gathering or a white gathering. This is a Jesus gathering. And so how do we do that? Well, that means we have people on stage that look like all of us, right? This isn't just one group or the other. It's like, man, how are we empowering a generation to follow Jesus, to not compromise the Word of God, and to be the change that we want to see? So see you there. All right, well, this segment is called Make Jesus Known. We have guests come on every episode to share how they're out there bringing the good news into the public. And I'm blessed to have on with us today one of my friends. He is an attorney. He's a political strategist. He wrote the book Compassion and Conviction. And he is the founder and leader of the AND campaign, one of the most important groups, in my opinion, in our nation as it comes to helping a new generation see issues of righteousness, justice, and politics. So, Justin, we're going to talk about the AND campaign, but I want to start with this question. How do you, your family, your world, how do you make Jesus known?
You know, we do our best, and one of the things we talk about all the time is just in how we love people, and especially the people that maybe we're not expected to love. The AND campaign talks about all the time. How do you not just extend love to people in your ideological tribe, so to speak, but those who may not like you, may disagree with you on very important issues, but how do you show that you love them? And I think that's one of the greatest ways that we can show the difference between us and others, and really what Jesus was about.
Yeah, I love that. Now, tell us a little bit about the AND campaign. Now, I'll just say this. You and I come from as different of backgrounds as people could come from. Man, even sometimes, like we joke with each other, sometimes people don't know that there's Christians on the other side of the aisle, right? That even believe in Jesus, that follow Jesus. And man, I've learned so much from you and your work as it relates to helping people think through politics and issues of justice and culture. And I know even we had the chance, right, to join together at Together 2018. And I'm trying to remember who else was with us. We had that panel. And
John Perkins
John Perkins was there. Yeah, and so it's just like this conversation is years in the making. And that's what relationships are about. Not just quick things, but just life partnership. But I want you to tell people, because a lot of people watching maybe don't know about the AND campaign. Give us the flyover and tell us how we can get involved.
Campaign is a Christian civic organization that's trying to help Christians engage politics more faithfully. We truly believe that the categories of progressive and conservative don't really allow Christians to be Christians and do it as well as we should do it in the public square. So we try to get Christians not to be so focused on their party or their ideology, but focused on biblical principles, because we think that Christians have much more to offer when they're not so constrained by those categories. And we're really just looking to the Bible to say how we can treat one another, even when we disagree, that we can come and find a lot of common ground based on biblical principles.
So how can people get involved that are watching today?
Man, you can, go to our website. We have 13 chapters around the nation. If you go to our website, which is andcampaign.org, you can send us a message. Let us know where you are. If we have a chapter in your area, we'll connect you with that chapter, or maybe even you want to create a chapter in your area. We have tons of content. You can read the book. We have a podcast, the Church Politics Podcast, a lot of different ways to engage us on social media. And we just want to give Christians a framework for engaging politics that isn't partisan, but biblical.
Justin, I love it. I just want to give this little plug as we close. This all started for me back in 2017 when I was talking to one of our mutual friends, Dr. Tony Evans. And I said, man, Dr. Evans, who do you know that's out there that's driving the right conversations around politics and justice and not compromising on the gospel? And he was like, man, there's these guys in Atlanta. They're killing it. You need to know Justin Giboney. And so I'm so thankful, Justin, for your friendship. And man, thanks for joining us here for Make Jesus Known.
Thanks, Nick, man. Take care.
And it's been so fun. And I know you've been waiting the whole time. So, man, we're ready for it, Josh. Let's see the dance moves. I know you said you had it. We want to see it. And I know you need music, so I'm not sure if Rosie can provide the soundtrack. But man, what could that look like? Can you guys drop a beat? What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? Listen, we sang, we danced, we broke the floor. Yeah. Like, it's been wild, man. It was awesome having Justin on the show. Justin Giboney. Did you guys love Justin Giboney? Yeah. Encourage you to check out the AND campaign, the important work they're doing, bringing together righteousness and justice. Such an important organization for this time. Also, man, we want y'all to be with us at Together 22, because it's about to go down at the Cotton Bowl in Texas. Man, who's coming? Who's coming? It's a road trip, man. We're road tripping for Jesus. Fill a bus, fill a van. Find out more. Be there with us this June. Man, it's going to be awesome. Now, we had food together. We hung out together. I just feel like closer with you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, this has been fun. I encourage you, hit the comments. Share what's going on. That was like the hey. That's like the hey.
I was waiting.
My bad. Listen, hey, it's okay to leave someone hanging sometimes. You don't see them. We all been there. It's okay to be the guy that's trying to do the high five and you're like giving yourself a high five. Man, it's just, that's sometimes the way it is. But man, again, it's been fun. Come back. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.